together for the panelists, please. Give them some love.
Love.
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Okay, so we will start with Sven.
Yes. So my name is Stijn van der Straeten. I'm the CEO of Crypto Storage. That's part of the Crypto Finance Group in Zurich. We provide basically infrastructure and advisory services for financial intermediaries when it comes to storage infrastructure.
My name is Daniel. I'm a partner at S&P, a German-based law firm. We're dealing with all kind of crypto matters, including the new crypto custody license scheme in Germany. We also do a lot on the policy side of things, advising the government and lawmakers and trying to come up with efficient regulatory frameworks. And I also have sort of an academic hat. I'm a co-founder and co-host of a regulatory working group at Wharton, which we host every 6 months and trying to gather all the international regulators there.
My name is Guido Bühler. I'm the founder of SEBA. We call it the Bank for the New Economy. I think we've first digitalized universal bank in the world.
So my name is Peter Hofmann.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's back. So I'm CEO of Custodigit. Custodigit is a spin-off company of Swisscom, and we are providing a custodian platform for the regulated financial service industry. Meaning we are really powering the banks so that they can provide digital asset services to their customers.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alain Falys. I am the CEO of Keybox. Keybox is a technology which solves the problem of data breaches, and specifically digital assets that are being breached in different exchanges and custodians. It uses blockchain to fragment and decentralize the storage of the data, and recombining formulas to recombine the data when it's used. So it's decentralization of storage and data transmission, including digital assets.
Great, thank you very much for the introduction. So let's jump straight into the topic. So custody, what is custody? To me, it's the safekeeping of assets. And here we're going to talk about custody for crypto. The question is, like, if you look at what is the philosophy between Bitcoin and crypto and the whole industry, it's like the individual needs to have the control over his assets. The goal is basically to get rid of the intermediaries. I'm sorry. So the question I would like you to reply, and I would like to have the opinion of all of you, is like, why do you think we actually need custodian? So, Sven.
Well, I think we have to distinguish between safekeeping and custody. I think custody is a term out of the Collective Investment Scheme Act, right? So keeping assets safe of collective investment funds, which has a special license. But if you look at the safekeeping of assets for institutional clients, especially, and even larger family offices and even retail clients, they can't just have their assets under their bed on a ledger. And we see that in the market. And from a regulatory perspective as well, just institutional investors cannot handle their assets that way. And this is why there is absolutely a need of a centralized custody that enables storage of these tokens, from my perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, in a way, I would second that, saying that there are two different angles on that type of issue. The first one is from an institutional perspective. If you're an asset manager, you're a good asset manager, but this does not necessarily mean that you are a good custodian or safekeeper. So there's a good reason to have in an institutional regulatory environment sort of a custodian. And there's another very important aspect, and that's something which we need to remember ourselves constantly, is that when talking about crypto tokens, we're basically talking about bearer instruments on steroids, with all perks and perils. And this is something the vast majority of users, of retail users out there, at least need to be educated to really deal with that kind of risk. And then it's up to this sort of them themselves to decide whether they're willing and able to take that risk or not.
Thank you.
Again, sorry.
So, as you mentioned, blockchain allows the decentralized finance, decentralization of many things. which has a lot of positive aspects of empowering the mass, right? And it's also a bit of a philosophical perspective. Do you believe that micro drives macro, or macro should drive micro? And when we announced last October to be a bank, we were a bit of concerned that the evangelists were challenging and said, you're going to destroy the philosophy. But I think this is gone, because at the end of the day, to the 2 points that was alluded before, the private key is very, very important. And I have evangelists, they say, I don't want to be the bank anymore of my friends and my mother, because the private key you want to delegate to someone. And by the way, I also think the mass adoption of blockchain kicks in when nobody needs to take care of their key protection. And so who is, if you trust your key, and when we say we are a family office and we talk about 1 trillion or 100 million or many significant sizes of assets, and let's say I have a 1 trillion, then maybe if I'm a hacker, it makes sense to invest 50 million to hack the 1 trillion. You want to make sure it's the most secure environment. And the most secure environment, I don't want to go into the custody solution per se, but it's funny, if you want to make a digital asset very, very safe, it becomes physical again. But when it comes to the entity that you trust your significant amount of money, which is different than to the traditional bank, because somebody robs the money even digitally, there is a trail and you bring it back. You want to make sure it's the highest regulated aspect. And up to this point, so much the state-approved platform is a regulated bank in an accepted jurisdiction. And another aspect that has not in relation to custody in itself, it's the issuer risk. How many gold tokens do exist in the market? More than 70. And many of them just have the name gold in the name. But the underlying of the gold is basically an approximation of something. And the issue risk becomes very important when I followed the conversation about STOs in general. Is it really what it's supposed to be? And is the valuation fair in order to distribute and trade it to the market?
Thank you.
So from my side, apart from if you do custody on your own, that it is cumbersome, I would really touch on the trust which was mentioned before. I guess if we see the current market, the volumes are really low. Cryptocurrencies, but also on the STO tokens. And for mass adoption, I guess this element of trust and the intermediaries, bank and so on, who can provide that trust is really an important element that we can move towards mass adoption.
So I have a slightly different view. I think that we live in a world where the technology is starting to enable decentralization of a lot of things, including storage. And we need to be enabling choice for corporations, for individuals, when it comes to their crypto assets or any data that they deem important to them. And therefore, I don't think that we should take for granted that somehow there needs to be centralized custodians in the future. Right now, I can see why we're doing it, and I think that it's sort of a natural evolution. It's a slow movement towards decentralization. But if we project ourselves not so many years from now, I think decentralization will be the order of the day, even for storage. We're going to be enabling truly decentralized finance. I hope a lot of us here in this room will enable that through openness, permissionless, trustless, where somehow the system, the computers, the programs will actually do a better job than the custodians. So I think the custodian solutions today are very cumbersome. They're very they're hardware based. They're not exactly the most sort of efficient and digital. And it's normal that they are like that today, but I think that we have to work to make it different in the future, precisely for giving people choice.
So I heard that you, in your company, you're using kind of a different technology. So can you tell us a little bit more about like what technology you're using and what is the approach from your company to the custody problem?
The approach was that somehow when data is centralized in any form, it's a honeypot for hackers, right? So therefore, centralization is the problem. You know, we're always going to have hackers out there. So if you can create a technology whereby a hacker hacks but he gets nothing, then you've actually advanced there's a solution here, and that's what Keybox is. It's basically the fragmentation of the asset, the keys, the data in multiple pieces, using an algorithm which some of you may know, which is very well known and I think will be widespread in the future, called Shamir secret sharing. The ability to have these fragments distributed across multiple nodes, public nodes, private nodes, a mixture, in Switzerland, in Europe, in China, wherever you want these data fragments to be. And the ability to manage through the blockchain, which is a permission blockchain today in our case, but will actually be adapted to other blockchains in the future, be able to recombine that data when you're authorized. And if I authorize you to access a specific key, you get a recombination formula that you can actually recombine on your device. So it's really the decentralization of the data using the old algorithms with the new, the blockchain, to manage all the processes.
Thank you, very interesting. And I think like Guido, in SEBA, you are using your own technology that you have developed yourself. So can you tell me a little bit more about SEBA approach to custody and what you've been doing so far?
Well, we have not developing our own hardware, that's obvious, right? But we took all the components together, and we have these 3 layers, as many have, from hot to cold and deep cold storage. I think there are various different layers. I mean, I also agree with Alain. The key word is choice, right? So for instance, at SEBA, we say we bridge between traditional and digital world, but also within the digital world, we give the choice, You be your own bank means you own your private key. We do that as well. It's your choice. Do you have on your device a wallet, which is the private keys with the bank? And then you go somewhere and you take from 100 Bitcoin, you put it on your public wallet, and then you are in the world where you protect your key the way you would like to do. And I think that's the particular element. Going back to our solution, there's various layers from the infrastructure as we know it, to the physical, how it's shielded, to the location, to the capital, to the regulatory framework. Stijn made a very good point between custodian in the investment scheme for institutional and storage in itself. And then on top of it, you have the entire asset services aspect where it's particularly aligned for family office or institutional investors or for private investors.
Thank you. Sven, do you want to jump on that regarding what we were discussing at the break?
Yes, so on our solution? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, so our approach, as Guido pointed out, as safer it gets, you get to the point where digital becomes hardware again. So we developed with the company Securasys that also built the hardware for the Swiss National Bank. The SIG payment system is secured with that. So we developed with them a solution where human interaction is necessary, but not in any case. So our client can choose how secure he wants to have the process of spending, basically through a governance model. And it requires, of course, physical devices to exclude cyber risk, at least on stealing assets, right? Which is protecting the honeypot is our goal at the end of the day. Yeah. So we registered a couple of patents on that. So it is different, but our clients chooses according to their corporate governance model, their operational risk aspects that the bank might have, which layer they put on which wallets, basically.
Great, thank you. Peter, do you want also to give your opinion? Like, because we had an interesting discussion where I was telling them, like, maybe people in the room have no idea what is the difference between cold and hot, because they have been talking about physical device, software and so on. So maybe, Peter, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, actually, it's quite hard to find a definition. What's the difference? What's really cold and what's warm and what's hot? It's always confusing. But in general terms, I would say cold storage means it's not connected to any internet or network itself, in comparison to warm or hot storage, which actually is on the internet or on a network. And I'm having lengthy discussions always what's seen as more secure. I do have a personal opinion that cold storage is not more secure, but it's different compared to warm storage because the attack verticals are different. Whilst on a warm storage, we have more cyber attack risk, whilst on a cold storage, it's more on the organizational side. So lengthy discussion, but the perception still is in the market that cold storage is seen as more secure, but I'm quite sure with technology like Keybox that will change over time.
Great, thank you very much. And Daniel, I would like to ask you, because you're a lawyer and you're specialized in German regulation, and I guess you've all seen like very recently that the German regulator has issued a crypto custody license. So maybe you can give a little bit overview of that compared to Switzerland.
Yeah, sure. Yes, when transposing the anti-money laundering directive into German law, the German lawmakers or the government decided to take a more comprehensive approach, trying to regulate tokens and crypto assets in a really comprehensive manner. Part of that approach is that we now have a crypto custody license scheme. So if you are a third-party provider providing custody to customers, in Germany, you actually need a license in the future. So and this is not only a custody issue, because custody can take many forms. As an exchange operator, for instance, you are extremely likely to be subject to that kind of regulation as well. It is quite interesting because we have two different angles on that issue. The first one is from a startup perspective, or from the startup's perspective, it's quite a hassle because it takes at least 125K minimum capitalization, and it took time, money. I would roughly say you with 250K, 6 to 9 months, it might be a good thumb rule right now. But there's also an institutional angle. And what we've been experiencing in the last 2 months, basically, is a lot of interest from institutional custodians and other providers in the security token space, DeFi space, who might be interested to get a license under German law to be able to prove that the custody itself has been approved by a regulator. So this is also part of a regulatory arbitrage, just the other way around. You would usually expect that. And so there's the approach is very different to the Swiss approach in this instance. And also there is a strong limitation in terms of this is a German-only approach, so you'll not be able to passport that kind of license within the European Economic Area, which is something, well, there might be a workaround in 2 or 3 years. I'm quite optimistic that the European Union will follow suit and will come up with a similar scheme under MiFID.
Great, thank you. Do I have time for question or not? Okay, go ahead. Wait a sec.
It's a very practical question, so thank you so much, guys, for all this insightful information. Great to know what you do in this space. For crypto custody, right, to be like super accepted, we all need insurance, and we know, if you're in this industry, you know how BitGo operates, like Pardon is insured, On Custody is now like very active in Asia, and like only a tiny part of their custody is insured. So the name of the panel is like why Switzerland is a leading hub. Are you guys like providing, it's like insurance here, like it's an easy peasy thing here, or how do you operate? Like will SEBA Bank has, like custody insured there? Yeah, that's like really major, so please share.
Yeah, yeah. Insurance is marketing, but I guess so. I explain how we do that. We have these 3 layers of custody storage. We believe the deeper you go, the safer. We have presented, we had a syndication of insurance companies with us. We talked about this, and we have received good response. So our hot storage has a good insurance aspect of it. On the deep cold and the cold storage, we provide insurance if clients would like to have it. But I guess the probability versus the insurance premium doesn't really add up. And on the other hand, there is also the capital side of the bank, which is compensating for that. So we are insured where we believe, in theory, there is the highest probability for a potential hack. So we feel very safe.
Okay, maybe I add to this, right? Insurance doesn't replace a secure architecture of your storage solution. I have heard many companies that offer a full, on the tech side, not very secure, but doesn't matter because they have an insurance company. Well, if you read the policy in details, right, when it comes to cybercrime, and most policies exclude cyber war. So if more than 10 computers are involved in the cybercrime attack, the insurance policy will not work because it's a cybercrime attack, right? And these nitty-gritty details need to be looked at. And I'm very cautious on insurance from a risk management perspective. It does make sense to insure some aspects of the solution, absolutely. As Guido pointed out, but just having a full insured custody doesn't say anything. I don't believe that anymore, because also in the insurance market, it's very expensive, point one, and what you get is not actually what you really need, right? You don't, a storage or custody company, we're talking about 1 billion, 5 billion in assets, right? You won't get an insurance that insures that via cybercrime. Your insurance policy is going to be so expensive that you don't have a business case anymore. So I would be very careful, and that's why I said insurance is a lot used in marketing. But it doesn't replace the technology to keep your assets safe.
Thank you. I think I'm being told that we need to wrap up. So can you please congratulate my panelists?